Well, thank you, Fred, for your wonderful and kind introduction. And you said most of the things I want to say at the beginning, so I don't want to spend any more minutes in doing so. Actually, I started my professional career at Georgetown in 1983. So Washington, D.C. always has been a sort of home away from home. And later stage, I also stayed about 7 months at the World Bank in 2004. So I love to be back to Washington, D.C. And also Fred is a longtime friend, and we personally met in Seoul, maybe 1990. I was kind of escorting him, and he was so energetic. He running around the city, and then only one day after, he lost his voice because he's so energetic in speaking to other people. In addition to Fred, I have very close friends here, many friends here in this room, Jeffrey Schott, and of course Gary Hauptbauer. We were colleagues at Georgetown a long time back, maybe almost 30 years ago now. And Cloud Barfield and Marcus Noland. I can name many names, but I'll skip that. Actually, over the years, I have been a frequent visitor of this institution, when we call IIE, now we call PIIE. But I always was sitting in the audience table, listening to, the important person, or some important figure from Korea. I accompany him, all this kind of thing. Today, I'm doing the exactly opposite. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'll try to my best in delivering this. I'll skip what I did in the morning because you already mentioned. I met with Ron Kirk, Ambassador Kirk. We had a very nice meeting to set up institutions, including some committees and working groups to manage the KORUS FTA implementation. I think we have a very productive meeting. Thanks to, you mentioned Wendy Cutler, but I have to mention my Deputy Minister, Seok-Young Choi. He also worked for the embassy long time before, but they too actually finalized the last part of the KORUS FTA. I really appreciate for their work. Before I start my presentation, let me say how much we all miss the presence of Monty Graham. He was one of the finest academics, a great scholar, and most of all, a good friend of Korea. I miss him very much. Okay. Let me talk to my topic. I will talk about mostly 4 things. I didn't say in the front page, but I will start with Korea's trade performance in recent years, and then Korea's trade policy, and then I quickly touch upon Korea-US FTA, and lastly, East Asian economic integration. Lots of things are going on these days in East Asia. I especially went to China right before I come to New York on Monday. I participate along with my leaders, trilateral summit meeting. But before that, on the 12th, trilateral trade ministers meeting was held. We conclude our recommendation so that it can be delivered to the leaders. So I will give you some stories. It's very early stage, but that's what I want to do. Okay, this is a picture for Korea's total trade. You know why we have a little, decrease in 2009. I don't want to explain anything because we have a world economic crisis at that time. After that, our trade volume picked up quite a bit, and then 2011, we reached over $1 trillion trade volume, year 2011. Actually, 2008, we were organizing some kind of seminar to celebrate $1 trillion trade volume, but we never expect what happened in 2 months. But anyway, this is what happened. And to give you simple figures, we are doing $1 trillion trade. And export half, $500 billion, import half. That's pretty much you can remember. And interestingly, our GDP is $1 trillion. It's very, very easy to remember. As of now, maybe next year will be different. We have a pretty good size of trade surplus to 2011. And we became, already in 2010, 7th largest exporting country. This is tremendous achievement because our export in 1977 is only $10 billion. Over the 34-year period, our export grew by more than 55 times. It's an impressive performance. And our global market share is about 3%. And in 2011, we celebrate a lot because we reached, the $1 trillion trade volume, which means that we are now one of the 9 countries who did that. And Jeff Schad and other people, we have a seminar last year in the anticipation that we'll be reaching over $1 trillion. I think to be exact, maybe December 5 or 6, our trade, we are daily, measuring our trade volume, and we reach the over $1 trillion trade. Well, I will just quickly move on. This is a very important slide I want to show you. This is trade patterns with major trading partners. If you look at US, it is 1995 through 2010. In 1995, our trade share with the US is over 20%, but it continued to slide to 10%. But we had a diplomatic relationship normalization in 1992 with China. Trade volume, trade share increased continuously up to more than 20% as of 2011. EU quite stagnant. Japan also we have some decline. But interesting thing is China 22% of our trade. All other advanced countries, US, Japan, and EU, respectively 10%. So altogether it's 52%, and remaining 48% is with developing countries. So you have to consider why we are having this kind of continuous sliding trade shares between the two countries. And I just measure simple index we call trade intensity index. It's a very simple one. I'm not saying that this is a very good measurement. It could be, it could have some kind of, complexity, but to have a very good, quick judgment, I think this is a good index. If you look at the trade between the two countries, the blue line is our export to United States. It used to be in the early 90s, it goes to like 1.7% or something like that, 1.7. That means, simply speaking, we are doing 70% more than the average countries in the world in terms of doing export to United States. And now this figure, we start our negotiation in 2005. So 2005, 2006, already this index fall down to 0.8. That means in aggregate trade, we are doing 20% less than rest of the world in terms of exporting to United States. This is a kind of alarming to Korean people because we got to do something, because if you don't do that, then you will lose your market share in the most advanced economy. It will be very, very difficult to recover this kind of market share in the future. So we have to, as an economist, you mentioned many people, but in an academic circle, we are worried about this kind of phenomena. We have a continuous declining of our relative performance vis-a-vis United States. To compare with other countries, Japan, only thing is we are not exporting too much to Japan, but we are having continuous bilateral deficit, trade deficit. As an economist, we don't have to worry about that too much, but politically in Korea, this matters. And last year, we have about $30 billion deficit. Not a single year we have a surplus with Japan. But anyway, this is our high dependency on Japan for parts, materials, and components, very advanced technology. We still depend upon Japan. So look at this. The red one is imports. We are doing like 3 times more than other countries because we are close, but we are depending on our parts and components and other things. Our export to Japan, not much impressive. So I don't want to talk about that here. And China, in 1992, this year is 20th anniversary of our diplomatic normalization with China. So it has passed 20 years. And in 1992, the trade volume between the two countries, 6.3 billion. Now it reached $220 billion. So within 20 years, it grew more than 35 times. According to Chinese statistics, it's bigger than this. And we have some inconsistency. But also, if you add Hong Kong as a China, then it goes even further because we are transshipping through Hong Kong. But anyway, we have geographical proximity and also industrial complementarity, which contribute this kind of huge trade. But more importantly, we have about $50 billion surplus with China. Why this is happening? Mostly intra-firm trade between Korean companies. We have more than 20,000 companies operating in China. And most of them are assembling the things and then make final goods, and you export to other parts of the world. And we import lots of capital goods, intermediate goods, components, just like we are doing from Japan. We are doing it between Korean companies. So I said this $50 billion surplus, in any moment it can disappear, because now China is focusing on more domestic demand-oriented policy rather than encouraging so-called processing trade. So I'll come back to this a little bit later. So here, even though the trend is declining, but index number is 2.5, very, very heavy, because we are exporting too much to China. And EU, not much impressive. It's all less than 1, export, import. So I think China is doing a lot to EU, their export to EU. So we don't have any impressive relationship between Korea and EU. In that matter, we have to also consider EU as a very important future market. We have to do a little bit better in terms of trade performance with EU. What about other countries? I said 48% of our total trade is with other countries. But I want you to note that our trade with ASEAN is quite impressive, $125 billion in year 2011, bigger than US, bigger than trade with Japan and EU. And according to my own knowledge, ASEAN 10, their GDP is $1.8 trillion. It's less than twice size of the Korean economy, but still we are doing very heavy trade. I think we are doing very healthy complementary trade between ASEAN and Korea. We expect that this will grow even more, especially with Indonesia and Vietnam want to be a partner for Korea for FTA in the future. However, I noticed that our trade with India, only $200 billion, even though we have a FTA. Middle East countries, African countries, Latin American countries, and Russia, we are doing relatively small. So maybe I will say something about this. Looking at Korea's trade performance recent years, I have 4 implications. First one, if you look at this kind of performance roughly, I said that to improve Korea's performance in advanced markets such as US and EU, and to maintain competitive edge for Korean companies or Korean products, Korea needed FTAs with US and EU. I think this is a kind of piece of information that maybe we need this because if you look at this. And also to benefit from China's policy of reducing reliance on processing trade and focusing more on increasing domestic demand, Korea may need an FTA with China. And then to increase the export to Japan and to stabilize parts procurement chain. That's what Japan is always arguing. You have to have a stable supply chain with Japan. We may need to reconsider starting the FTA negotiation with Japan, which was suspended in 2004 after 1 year of negotiations. And lastly, there's a tremendous potential for Korea's trade expansion with India and other countries with whom we are not doing much trade these days. Okay, let me quickly move to the next topic, which is Korea's FTA policy. Well, I will skip this, but Korea emphasized most important motivation as FTA is penetrating into foreign markets. We are depending upon our exports. And also, we want to attract foreign investment and technology through FTAs. And evolution of Korea's trade policy. As you know, up until the early 1990s, Korea relied on multilateral trading system of the GATT. No other, approaches. However, in 1993, at the end of 1993, NAFTA was established, and Korea started to pay attention to the regional trade agreement because Korea, in a way, competing with Mexico in many, many different areas, accessing to OECD, getting hold Olympic. That we are all, competing with Mexico. Now Mexico is exporting goods without any tariff to United States. We are alarmed, so we have to do something about this. And also, WTO, but not much effective. So we rather move to second best approach or whatever. And the previous government, Roh Moo-hyun government, in 2003, for the first time in Korean history, they actually made a roadmap, FTA roadmap. A few pages, but summary page is just one page. It has a criteria for choosing partner, and what about the period, in the early period or midterm or long run. They categorize the country groups. And I remember the first group, we have Japan. So we exactly follow the roadmap. So we start negotiation with Japan first. But 1 year after, we have my predecessor, in a way, not very previous predecessor, but Mr. Kim, another Kim Hyun-jong, he quickly persuaded our president. I don't know why, how, but it's more important to have a FTA negotiation with the United States. So they stopped negotiating with Japan and hurting Japanese negotiators very much. And then he started negotiating with the United States. And that's why I give huge credit to Mr. Kim. He's a very young man at that time, he's a lawyer, and also President Roh Moo-hyun, because he was persuaded. According to his biography, I read some sentences made by President Roh Moo-hyun. Exactly, statement looks like is said by economists, like Fred Buxton. We need competition. We need market economy, strong competition from United States. We need to restructure our economy so that our economy becomes stronger. And the current president says FTA is not a political issue. It's a survival issue. But he said that too in the midst of turmoil last year. So those two leaders make a huge contribution. I give a huge credit to my predecessor, not only that Kim and another Kim, my predecessor Kim Jong-un. He made a huge contribution, and of course Wendy and Deputy Minister Choi. But anyway, that's what we did, and we are trying to find the partners such as large advanced economies, which is U.S. and EU, and then emerging large economies, India at that time, maybe later China, and countries with rich natural resources, because we are lacking natural resources. And also, it seemed to be, now I'm in the government, but when I was outside government, our government is always feel like, how many percentages we are doing trade with our FTA partners. And they know Chile and Mexico, they are doing it over 80%. And on the world average, I don't know how we get this, but 50%. But Korea's, even including KORUS FTA, is only 35%. So we want to do some more. That's our, actually my position now, we have to increase a little bit more than 35%. That's what we keep trying to do. And to summarize what the current state of FTA, Korea's FTA, we have 8 FTAs: Chile, Singapore, EFTA, ASEAN, India, EU, Peru, and US. And Korea is currently negotiating FTAs with Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Colombia, and Turkey. Turkey, we finished the good trading goods part. And maybe later on, we are doing it as a 2-stage negotiation. Colombia, we hope we can finish this by end of June this year. It's almost done. Our president is expected to visit Colombia this June. And China, I will come back to this, we just began on May 2nd. And countries Korea may start negotiating FTA with is Japan, which is a resumption of the negotiations. And then Korea, China, Japan, trilateral FTA. Also, I will come back to this. Indonesia and Vietnam, we have an FTA with ASEAN, but individually, they want to have an independent FTA with Korea. So we are working on it. And then maybe we will start soon negotiating with those countries. Okay, now let me briefly explain KORUS FTA. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we announced the negotiation officially. That's the February 2006. And then we finished whole negotiation in June 30th, 2007. They signed the official, on the official agreement. And then, we cannot make a ratification, and government changes. And then a lot of issues, especially from the United States, on auto issues. President Obama said something about the automobile industry. So we have additional negotiations in the end of 2010, and everything is finished in February 2011. And then domestically, October 2011, domestic process were completed in the US. And luckily, fortunately, we can do it in November. And then we have 2 or 3 months of consultation, and then we started our FTA on March the 15th. I vividly remember Jeffrey Schott was in Seoul in September last year, and he's still concerned about the ratification process of the United States. He cannot guarantee, even though your president visit Washington, D.C., may not. But through all kind of difficulties, and thanks to the help of many people who are in this room, we made it. And luckily, we start our our KORUS FTA, enter into force on March the 15th. So my job was starting FTA as soon as possible. But thanks to these two wonderful people's job, we are able to start. Anyway, I quickly say something about our motivation for KORUS FTA. Of course, we want to have a FTA with largest and the most advanced country in the world. And actually, at that time, we want to diversify our trade relations out of the East Asia, out of Northeast Asia. So when we talk about Korea-China FTA, without Korea-EU, Korea-US FTA, we cannot do this. But at the time, many people are complaining and worrying about Korea is being sandwiched between China and Japan. So we have to go outside the East Asia. And this is one of the good approach we took. And introduce more competition, just like President Nomion says, reform domestic regulation institutions. And also, we want to enhance the competitiveness of Korea's service sectors, because we really do that. Our productivity of service sectors are very low. So through KORUS FTA, we want to enhance this and also induce more foreign direct investment. Well, I don't want to, this is the additional negotiation on cars. Only thing is, we are supposed to eliminate tariffs immediately in both countries. But through these additional negotiations, United States eliminate tariff of 2.5% on cars in 5 years, delayed 4 years. And in the case of Korea, we did the same thing, but we have to immediately cut from 8% to 4%, and then eliminate the tariff in 4 years. So we have a little more concession to made to U.S., and some other things are also agreed upon at that time. So let me just quickly say that values of KORUS FTA. First one already Fred mentioned. Among FTAs Korea has completed, KORUS is the most comprehensive in terms of coverage and most ambitious in terms of scope and depth of liberalization. I think this is a very important feature. And this will revitalize Korea's trade relations with the United States. And according to our study, we will have a 5.7% extra increase in GDP in 10 years and 350,000 jobs in 10 years. I don't know how we get this, but the research says that, computer says that. So, one thing I want to emphasize that our trade with the U.S. is concentrated on few items compared to other countries' trade with the United States. Samsung, big countries are doing very well, but only on few items. So I really want to encourage small and medium-sized firms to participate and utilize KORUS FTA. In that way, we create more jobs. I didn't say anything here, but a new phenomena is taking place in Korea. Our consumers are claiming their rights. This is through KORUS FTA. We never see this kind of phenomena before. Consumers saying why prices are still there. We want to see price come down. So our Fair Trade Commission is, investigating some kind of competition kind of status kind of thing. So I think a KORUS FTA provide a good momentum for consumers to pay more attention of their right through this kind of agreement. Okay, service sector I already mentioned. Another specific value of KORUS FTA is because of KORUS FTA, it induces other countries to have interest in having FTA with Korea. And a good example is EU. They started later, but they actually have a Korea-EU FTA start earlier than KORUS FTA. And China, even in 2005, they show interest. And Japan also showed their interest in resuming the negotiations. I think this is very, very important aspect. And also, for Korea, unlike Japan, because of KORUS FTA, we are taking a little more, what I should say, monitoring time. Whether then I should decide today or tomorrow in joining TPP. So this is good for Korea. And of course, we have a keen interest in joining TPP later, sometime later, when we find that everything is stabilized, then maybe we should apply for joining the TPP, because if we have those 9 countries, we already have FTA or negotiating FTA with all 9 countries. So after TPP is formed, then it's much more beneficial for Korean companies to join TPP, because we can use integrated rules of origin, and also they can use accumulation of origin to claim that this is eligible for preferential tariffs. So these two aspects, we have many reasons to join TPP, but we will discuss later when TPP with 9 countries is stabilized. So we are not saying because of KORUS FTA, we don't need to join FTA, but we have a strong interest in monitoring TPP and joining the TPP later. Okay, this is Korea's FTA network. The blue ones, we already have FTA. The yellow one, we are still having a negotiation with. So one thing, let me just quickly move to next stage, next slide. This, if you combine the already, concluded FTA partners, is about 60% of global GDP. And we hope through this, so-called FTA's network, we can invite many foreign direct investment in Korea. Because once you come to Korea as a production site or some kind of facilities, then you have many access to other countries. So we need this kind of FDI inflow into Korea, and then that creates jobs. And recently, we can see some evidences. Europeans are investing in Korea, and Japanese are also investing in Korea, much larger than before. Whole figure is still very small, but you can see the rapid increase in last half of the second half of the last year. So we hope this will continue to utilize our FTA network. Okay, then last topic I want to talk is East Asian economic integration. As I said, on May 2nd, I went to Beijing, and Korea, China announced the start of FTA negotiations. Well, many Korean people says, why another FTA with China suddenly? But it's not suddenly. As I said, from 2005, we have 2 years of private research organization study, 3 years of official studies with the industry, government, and research organization. So even 2 governments declared the end of study. So we cannot study anymore, because we have done enough. So then they asked the Korean government, what do you want to do? And we said, we are busy in KORUS FTA, we are busy. So we got to say something. And we said that in January this year, when our president visited China, we said that after we complete our internal process, then we may begin our negotiations. We discussed with the Chinese counterpart. We decide May 2nd. And we just finished the first round of negotiation just last Monday. Deputy Minister Choi went there. And we are moving forward. I cannot talk very much on this, but on the day of announcement, we issued a joint statement by both ministers. 3 things. It got to be comprehensive FTA. Second thing is we gave special attention to sensitive areas. Not too much, but some sensitive areas. Third thing is we will include outward processing zone in the Korea-China FTA. We mean that in the Korean Peninsula. So those 3 things are announced publicly. So that's the guideline we want to do. And the rest of them, the deputy ministers are doing terms of references in many, many different issues. And on May 13th, I went to China also, along with my president and other leaders. They announced that they will launch the trilateral FTA negotiations within this year. Japan won't, begin earlier, but we say not necessarily too early. In China, compromise that within this year, and we start the preparation very quickly. I don't know how much time it'll take, but this is what it is. In 2009, then Japanese Prime Minister Hatoyama suggested this, and they also have a study of 2 years. And study is done last year, and then we have to say something. And this is the leader's agenda, so it may move along. And also, I don't know whether you know this or not, last October, we established a small international organization to support trilateral summit meetings. We have 20 people from 3 countries. They are working on full time. So not only for FTA matters, but they are discussing it, many cooperation issues. So now we have some system going for trilateral things. Lastly, I already see there's another possibility with the Japan may resume soon, but we are now talking in the working level. Maybe it may take some time. Well, if Korea, China, Japan trilateral FTA is formed in the sometime later, then it means FTA of ASEAN plus 3, because 3 countries each has an FTA with the ASEAN already. ASEAN has another 3 countries, India, Australia, New Zealand. They have individual FTAs. So if 3-country FTA is formed, it may automatically mean that ASEAN plus 3, so-called East Asian FTA, will be formed. So we have to wait and see what will happen. But very recently, ASEAN proposed to launch the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, RCEP, which is nothing but ASEAN plus 6, but they changed the name. And I don't know why, but they are worrying a little bit about losing initiative to 3 countries. ASEAN want to maintain its initiative in terms of East Asian economic integration. So tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, for 2 days, ASEAN is inviting officials from 6 countries. They are having meetings to talk about this. In November, the East Asian Summit meeting will be held in Cambodia. Maybe they will talk about this as leaders. And China doesn't like ASEAN plus 6 very much, but they are now accepting this idea. But they don't call ASEAN plus 6. They call ASEAN plus X. Because it could be more than 6. We don't know that, but this is what's happening. So that's the so-called CE, closer economic, comprehensive economic partnership in East Asia. Those things are also being discussed very interestingly. And then, of course, TPP. There are various types of economic integration of East Asia, but which one take which kind of format, we don't know. But this East Asian movement and TPP will progress in parallel for the time being. And I think in the later stage between East Asian Pact and the Trans-Pacific Pact, I think we want to do some role in merging this together, maybe in the future, not in the near future. So in that case, we can see the possibility of so-called overarching free trade area of Asia-Pacific, which was strongly advocated by Fred Buxton long time before. It could happen in the long run. So this is the last slide. In this process, Korea is committed to achieve high standard RTA, especially in East Asia. We will borrow the model of KORUS FTA. We want to have as high as possible in terms of East Asian economic integration. And KORUS FTA can be the linchpin of East Asian economic integration. Maybe for the time being, Korea may be the only country to have concluded FTAs with both United States and China in some time later. And maybe KORUS FTA will be an important building block in longer-term Asia-Pacific trade order. I will conclude by saying the last words, which means this: East Asian economic integration is going on, and TPP is going on. But if you look at it very precisely, TPP is combining individual FTAs to reach higher level of integration. But in a way, East Asian integration, if you add more countries, the quality becomes much smaller and weaker. So if these two approach meets in the final stage, if the gap is too high, you go back to the APEC difficulties. So it's very important to have as high as RTAs in East Asia, so that in the later stage, we can meet together sometime later. Okay, well, this is my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.